We're going to call the meeting to order. It is 10:03 on March 20th. So we'll begin with our Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we've got a lot on the agenda. I was looking at actually all the stuff that came in and said, man, we could have a 5-hour meeting if we wanted, but we're going to try to keep this to an hour. There's a lot, so we're going to touch upon some of the stuff real quick. The first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to introduce two individuals that have offered to volunteer to serve as alternate, and when somebody's not present, be a full voting member of the Economic Development Committee. So we'll have Russ and Brian come up to the mic there.
Awesome.
If you recall, this is a new position. It was approved at town meeting last year. In the past, we just had our board. And so what we asked the town for is to allow us to have two alternate members that would actually sit in, and if somebody did not show up for a meeting here, that they would become full voting members. And if there was a sudden vacancy, somebody moved out of town or a personal crisis and someone had to resign, one of the alternate members would immediately become the next full member so that we didn't have to go out through this whole process. And so appreciate you guys putting your hat into the ring here and volunteering. It's my understanding it's the first time either of you have ever served in a town board or committee, so awesome. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
So we'll have you introduce yourself and maybe just say a couple of words, and then the board may have some questions. And so, Russ, start with you.
Awesome, thanks. My name is Russ Giglio. I grew up in Lincoln, Rhode Island, not too far from here, just about an hour. Moved to Dudley just a couple months ago. We built a house up in Pierpont Estates. So really looking forward to being part of a small town culture. I grew up in a small town culture. Both my parents and my grandparents all served in the town of Lincoln. My dad is currently a foreman for the town. He's been there for 28 years. So I really like to get involved with the town as much as possible and try to make as much of a difference as possible. With the Economic Development Committee, from what I've read and the extensive research you guys have done, trying to expand Dudley and build our commercial and industrial usage, I think that's great, and I'd love to be a part of that.
Awesome.
Welcome. Welcome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And what do you do for a living today?
Right now, I'm currently an operations manager for CarMax, which is a used car retailer. I work in the Westboro location. We have 195 stores nationwide. Really trying to redo the way car buying is done. So right now, a lot of times people kind of see used car buying as a pain point. So what we do is I work on the reconditioning side of the business. What we're doing now is just offering people an easier way to buy a car, just no haggle. You don't have to come in and fight with us every time something happens at your car. You just come in and talk to us, and we'll take care of it for you. Kind of aligning our business more along the lines of Apple and Google as opposed to Herb Chambers or Bach Toyota or anything like that. So
Nice.
I've traveled the country, grand opened 26 stores with them, and really been able to help the company out a lot and help them grow their cross-functional stores, which essentially serve our smaller markets. So it's been a great time doing that, and look forward to taking what I learned there and kind of apply it to what we have going on here.
It's amazing. I don't know if you've ever seen a CarMax location. The amount of inventory you have on the ground at any given time. I say, oh my God, there's almost tens of millions of dollars worth of stuff on the ground.
Yeah.
The used car operation is quite extensive.
We have over 60,000 units in our company at any given time that can be transferred from location to location. So it's quite the operation.
It is.
Interesting.
Does anybody have any questions for Russ about anything else?
How soon do you figure you'd be ready to go? I mean, does this suit your schedule for what the meetings are like? I mean, are you available during the day, not necessarily just evenings, to be able to work in a time on that?
Yeah, the great thing about my job is my position is fairly flexible, so I'm able to come and go as needed. So for these meetings, I can absolutely get out and work come 10 a.m. and then go work for a night or something like that. So definitely flexible for whatever the schedule you guys have.
Awesome. Great.
I see you being involved sooner rather than later, because a lot of us have been on this committee for a while. It's time for new blood. We need to have some new ideas, and people have got a vested interest in the town. So I think it's great if you can attend a few meetings, but I think you're probably going to be on board sooner than you think.
Look forward to it.
Yeah. Agree.
Well, personally, I like the fact that you're part of a company that's growing rather quickly, national footprint. And so to bring that kind of perspective, you know, to the board here as we look to redevelop things and stuff, I mean, your input will be greatly valued, so.
Yeah, I think part of the perspective I'd like to bring too is more of a, like you said, looking from the outside in. What can we do? How can we drive business? What do bottom line numbers look like? I do a lot of profit and loss analysis, so I think that part of it would be really exciting for me to do. So.
Nice.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, Brian.
Good morning. My name is Brian Lebrecq. I live at 120 Pierpont Road, so just the bottom of the hill from
Oh, did you
Russ.
did you guys know each other before this? So your
Probably
neighbors.
drives by my house all the time, and
We're bringing people together already.
yeah. Well, so no, I've been here just since Memorial Day weekend. I came from Oxford. I'm originally from Putnam, Connecticut, so not far. I'm very well familiar with Dudley. I have some ties in Dudley from the point. I used to work at Gentex Optics. I graduated from Nichols. I have some ties there. I work from home. I'm a technical sales guy for a company out of Connecticut. I work from home, so I have a very flexible work schedule. Have two teenage students, kids. My daughter's 14. She wanted to stay in Oxford, so we school choiced her in Oxford. And my son was going to a private school, but he's going to be going to Shepherd Hill for his senior year next year. I live on the lake. It's a great living. There's a lot of nice people there. You're right. This is my first board assignment. I got a business background. I'm a sales guy. I'm a technical guy. I'm a real estate guy. I have real estate across the state. My wife is an agent. We have a real estate office out of our house. So from an economic development, reading the plan yesterday and wanting to do something with the mills, and there's still question marks on exactly what we want to do. I can appreciate, and one of the things I hear from a lot of people locally, and I'm living it now, is the low tax base. I think there's some good value in town from an education standpoint and a tax base compared to surrounding towns. So I think and I'm interested in learning what the vision of this board is, but really learning how to how we can keep that at a reasonable level, but yet continue to focus on education. Keeping tax base low is how do we expand our tax base, right? Spread the cost. So, utilizing assets, it's really nice to see that, and I look forward to participating in that. I've been up and down Route 12 in the area. I've seen ups and downs in the town from an economic standpoint. So I definitely like to see the vitalization that's going on real time today. I know there's more work to be done, but it's exciting. I see where you guys are headed. It's great. Glad to be a part of it.
Awesome.
Excellent.
John, do they have the appointment already made? Have they been sworn in yet so that they're all ready to go?
Great question. So the way this is going to work is we would vote them in today as the board. I then have to go to the selectmen, and they will appoint them as well.
Yeah.
And then once they're on board, at any given time, if a member, because the selectmen voted them in as well, if someone does leave, the way that we had it written is they would automatically become a full voting member at that point. So what I'll do is we'll take the vote. Once they're on, I'll get myself on the agenda for the selectman's office. I'll sponsor them in. It's just a formality. And then at that point, they do have to be sworn in by the town clerk as well.
Okay. Right.
And so basically your goal would be by the time we have our next meeting, we'll have everything all wrapped up. You'll be sworn in and you'll be able to have a vote that actually counts. Although your input will count today as well as we go through some of this stuff.
I see you coming on board sooner. A lot of us are part of the original group that were with that, and I've probably been the oldest member here by age and by service, but I'm one of the people who believes there's a time to let go, and you need to have new blood on, and I think our committee really does need that coming on board, new ideas, new thoughts. So hopefully we can get you through the process quickly and and look forward to it. I know being an alternate doesn't sound exciting, but I don't think you're going to be an alternate for very long. I really don't. So I think it's great you're participating, and we need new ideas. And the fact that both of you have business backgrounds, I think that's fabulous, because this is a committee that needs people who understand what the goal really is. It's not, we are a small town, we want to keep our identity to an extent, but we also need to be with it to know what it takes to attract business in here. So I think you're going to find it's a progressive group. John, since John come on chairman, John is tech savvy, he's smart, and he's a good coordinator to get information. I think you'll find it very, very interesting. So I'm hoping to see these gentlemen get up and running soon.
Yeah,
That it works.
I was going to put this in, it's under new business, but what I have from the town clerk, we actually have 4 people up for reappointment, and their terms currently expire 6/30. So we have Joanne, we have Marcia, we have Barbara, and we have Todd. And so one of the things I was going to ask is, you know, does anybody know if they're definitely not going to be seeking reappointment at this point?
Yeah, I'm not.
Okay.
I've been here a long time. I work in, my term for assessors is up again this year. I'm probably going to stick that out another 3 years. But for one, I don't know whether it's teaching background or not, but it's time to you need to know when to let go. You don't want to be somebody who's been in the same office for 60 years and you can hold the longest record. This is not that kind of committee. We need people that are progressive in their thinking. So I definitely won't be looking for
Okay.
reappointment.
And then, Todd, have you thought about it yet?
I have, and I would like to stay on.
Okay.
If it's
Yep.
that's still possible.
And Marcia's not here right now, and Barbara's not here, so over the next meeting or two, I'll determine that, because what our goal is to always have a full board. There's so much happening that it gets tough, you know, when we don't have a quorum and stuff. So moving on, the chair will entertain a motion from anybody to nominate and approve. We'll do 2 separate motions, one for each of them.
Okay, I make a motion that we nominate Russ Giglio as an alternate member.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. One second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
And I make a motion that we appoint Brian LeBrecq as an alternate member to our board.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, PJ seconded that. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Welcome aboard.
Well, guys.
So you know what? Why don't you just join us right now?
Yeah,
Just-
have a seat. Have a seat, guys.
It's easier to talk with you this way here as well. All right, next on the agenda, we're going to go into the Economic Development Plan update. So I'm going to start with Don, because Don has been very instrumental in putting this whole thing together and working with Central Mass Regional Planning. Everybody should have received by email a very big package with some addendums and attachments. The heart of the document is the Phase 1, which was the community assets, kind of just talking about the strengths and weaknesses. And Don has some good news as well. But so Don, I'll turn the mic over to you.
Good news is we've been funded for Phase 2. It's a 3-phase program. It's called the District Local Technical Assistance Program, the DLTA. It's through the Regional Planning Agency. And we've been funded for Phase 2 at this point. We'll be starting within a month or two, I imagine. CMRPC is Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission. You'll get to know that one. You'll get to hear that CMRPC a lot. And they administer the District Local Technical Assistance Program, and we're getting funded through that program. The first phase was an inventory of assets. That's been completed. I'm sure you have a copy of it. You probably haven't, I don't know if you looked through it yet, but that's generally the assets that we have available for economic development. The second phase is going to be working with those assets, essentially. It says here, this asks the question, what's stopping growth in places or sectors? We'll review the regulations in place, take a look at the regulations as they relate to surrounding communities and how they affect the surrounding communities as well. We'll also be looking at sector-specific workshops looking at agriculture, you probably noticed that over 20% of our land in town, believe it or not, is taxed for agriculture. It's about 22%. Significantly underutilized sector of the economy as we see it. So we're taking a harder look at that, going from there. We're also taking a look at a few different areas of town for various economic development activities that can take place there. Looking at the Webster Dudley Main Street corridor, which will include some information that we obtained in 2015 study for that for the commercial corridor. There will be site visit, site walk in that area sometime. We keep saying sometime this spring, but spring is not happening too quickly, so it'll be with the planning board and certainly any members of this committee are invited to attend as well. I don't see this happening much before April, but maybe by town meeting time in May, we'll see what happens. We're also looking at the Nichols College West Main Street neighborhood connection. We'll also be looking at the Schofield Avenue corridor area between Brandon Road and Chase Avenue. That'll be phase 2. It'll be a report on what we find. Phase 3 will come next year, and that's to tie it all together.
Are there any questions as anybody was going through the report? Did
I just
anybody-
passed out essentially what we're doing for phase 2. What got funded.
Central Mass Regional Planning is a regional organization. What is it, almost like a quasi-public agency, right? Each town contributes financially to it.
Yes. It's an agency of the state.
Yeah. So it's actually a state-owned agency?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's not state-owned, but it's an agency of the statute.
okay. Yeah, go ahead.
A lot of people don't really understand how beneficial they've been to little towns. I go back probably close to 40 years when they were instrumental when we didn't have any money to do our zoning. Central Mass Regional Planning came in, we were allocated certain amount of hours at that point in time. They're the ones who did our first zoning revision for us. So people are always afraid of Big Brother taking over things, but that's not really what their role is. They really have served in a great advisory capacity to little towns who didn't have the money or the resources to be able to get expert advice, and that's what they did. Towns have always been volunteers. Planning boards have been volunteers, zoning boards are volunteers, and these were full-time professionals in the planning business. So I think people need to be open-minded that using them as consultants is a really great thing. We pay for it. We might as well capitalize on it and take people who are smart at what they do. So I think it's great that they've been able to come forward and help us, because if we were trying to do this on our own, we'll go around in circles for years, where they can take us right to where we need to be.
Right, they fill in the gaps too that
Yeah.
the local towns don't have the time or the ability to do. They also look at things on a regional basis, on a transportation basis, for example, or a watershed or things of that type, that they take a look at a regional basis and how they interact with it and affect the various towns in the region. So
So when you say
Pretty good
it's
organization.
funded, it's not only money, but it's allocated potential human resources from this
time. Yes.
time?
Yeah, tremendous technical expertise, as Joanne said. You know, they're planners. They've got all this professional help that would cost us $150, $250 an hour, that we have that available as part of our allocation. And so by them helping with this plan here, it almost puts that professional seal of approval on it, but it also helps us at the end when we want to go for grants with the state. Maybe it's an infrastructure grant or Mass Works or Mass Develops, that they're saying, okay, these guys have really done their due diligence and we've had professionals review it and come up with this plan. It's not something that they're coming up on a napkin, so to speak. And so it helps us with that.
Also because they understand the region, because they work with all the towns, so they understand what's going on in the region, not just in this town alone, or, you know, they don't
So
go for
to
specific
execute
studies.
the phase 2 plan, do they provide information on how to execute that?
They'll
or-
facilitate it. They'll drive the
drive
cart.
it?
Yep.
Oh.
Yep. We have a dedicated person there. He'll come in and he'll probably once he talks to Don, Central Mass will probably come in here again.
It'll probably be in again. We'll look at a time frame for the various activities and,
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
yeah,
See,
that out over the next couple of months.
what a lot of committees end up doing, or a lot of towns, is that you think you have to reinvent the wheel, and then
Right.
you find out there are people who've lived it. They've lived it in smaller communities like us, and they have a composite of all of this information, so they can get you from part A to part D in 5 hours that took you 2 years of trying to figure this out, because you are a volunteer and you're trying to do a good job. But the gentleman sitting to my right is a professional at what he does. He's a planner. I'm not a planner. I live in the town, I care for the town, but I believe you should always use the people whose expertise is available. Sometimes you have to pay for it. We are paying and we're getting some freebies along with it, and I think we need to be smart enough to back off and listen to what they have to say. So I think this is a fabulous project that's going on. I think we have to support it wholeheartedly.
Don, is there anything else you want to add in particular to this?
Not particular to that, but also along with this line of thinking is the community, it's called the SEDS program. Some of you may have heard of this from the Economic Development Administration, the federal EDA. It's a program that's out there, and towns participate in this case, in Worcester County. We do it through the Worcester Regional Chamber of Commerce, and also through CMRPC. I'm going to give you a handout right now that'll tell you about a meeting that they're having. The SEDS is the Community Economic Development Strategy, and it's based on obtaining federal funding for specific projects. Typically, it's been used for industrial parks and things of that type, big projects. They're having a meeting at the Worcester Regional Chamber of Commerce on, let's see, this is going to be April 3rd, Tuesday, April 3rd, from 1 to 3 p.m. Also, CMRPC is having it. I presume that their quarterly meeting will take place Thursday night, because it's supposed to snow tomorrow, not Thursday, so. They also have a meeting on that, Worcester County's Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, at 7 to 7:30 p.m. I'll pass out these handouts, and
Is there anybody here that would like to go and represent the board or attend any of these functions?
I'm planning on going Thursday right now, unless it gets snowed out, but I don't think I think it'll be all gone by then.
Okay. And just like in business, where it's your network that counts, strongly encourage you to network while you're on the committee, especially with the regional organizations. It helps Dudley. Shows that, you know, we're interested in a part, but those personal relationships will help you throughout your career in public service when you need to get something done.
Tuesday the 22nd.
All right. Don, do you have anything else that you'd like to add in regards to that?
Well, one other thing. Over the weekend, on Saturday actually, it turns out it was St. Patrick's Day, but nevertheless, I went to the workshop put on by the Mass Cultural Council. And there's a lot of things that go on, cultural activities that relate to economic development. I think it might be a good idea to bring the Cultural Council into our sort of frame of reference here and see what they have to offer in the ways of economic development for the town, and I think we could work together in a number of things, activities, or, you know, whatever it is that they have on their agenda.
That's actually a pretty good segue into, you know, what, as we build the economic development plan, it was almost a two-pronged strategy, right? We're relying upon Central Mass Regional Planning for a lot of the technical expertise, you know, the research, the assets, liabilities, what needs to change zone and things like that. And then we held a year of public hearings where we got public information, we did surveys and things like that. And we're trying to bring things a little closer to some more tactical things that we can actually get done that can help things. And one of the things that had come up I'll pass this out. And the reason why I'm passing it now and taking it, we're kind of doing a summary of the economic development plan, because it's got to be a 5-year plan is our mandate. And so Central Mass regional plan, right, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, right, that's going to occur over 5 years, but we just don't want to sit back either. But there are things that we can do now, and twice a year, the town opens what's called a warrant, where people vote on things at town meeting, and you can get things done quicker. And one of the things that we really talked about is the town is kind of functioning around this live, work, play Dudley theme. And we really don't have a recreation committee. And I know that there is something on the books that says, hey, the town can establish a recreation committee, but it really doesn't designate what their powers are, their authorities, what encompasses under the recreation committee. So this was a stab that I put together in order to have that live, work, play, right? A three-legged, chair. One of the legs doesn't work, you're not going to do well. I think that the recreation portion of this needs to be as strong as anything else in the town. And so what I had thought about and was how can we maybe get something at town meeting or actually in the bylaw that gives the recreation committee some power and authority and some money and actually clearly designates what their responsibilities are. And that's what it is. So the initial thought, and totally discussion here, because what we have to do is if we are going to try to get something in town meeting, we have to vote on this and then give it to the selectmen to put as a warrant article for approval. All right? So what I was just thinking is 3 town residents. We have the town administrator on the board and the DPW highway superintendent on the board. Now 3, arbitrary number, just, less people, but you got to think of quorum and what if only 2, and so, is 5 the right number? Don't know. But the purpose of the Recreation Commission is to seek the development of recreational programs and the enhancement of recreational facilities and opportunities within the town of Dudley. And then I try to go specific. Management of the beaches. Right now, the selectmen manage them. Management of all town open space and conservation lands. Right, we have the Conservation Commission, but they really are designed around wetlands. They really don't manage the conservation lands. The rail trails. Right now, we have basically 1 individual and a handful of volunteers. I mean, Ken Butkowitz is the rail trail. I mean, he could use some help, So who actually owns the rail trails? The DPW, he calls them when he needs the trees cut or things, or the mowed and stuff like that. Any boating opportunities? I mean, we have, places where you can enter canoes and kayaks in the rivers and the lakes and streams and ponds. Fishing, hunting, hiking trails. We have open space land that do have trails in them, but who's maintaining them? Any town-owned lands. When someone comes in for a subdivision, typically, part of that subdivision is that they put a side area that's called open space. Well, when that subdivision's accepted by the town, what happens to that open space? Usually nothing. The developer's supposed to have trails and stuff so that people can enjoy that open space, but once the developer's gone or declared bankruptcy or whatever, it falls through the cracks. Any water recreational opportunities. Partner with public and private agencies for all sports and community activities within the town of Dudley. And also special events and town celebrations. Paul Joseph, one of the selectmen, had a great idea about putting together Dudley Days, where, you get a bunch of things going on in town and tag sales and fundraisers, and great idea. But at the end of the day, you need people that are going to work those ideas. So this was just the thing that I did want them to have, because in the past we've had recreational committees. In talking with some of the former members, they said the problem was the committee would want to do something and then they were overruled because another department or another board didn't agree, or they tweaked it and they changed it from the original intent of what they wanted to do. you know, too many chefs in the kitchen type of scenario. So I wanted this committee to be autonomous and to have money. And once that money's allocated, if they don't spend it, it just rolls over. You know, we've had issues with the town beach, who can access it, how, you know, who maintains it, you know, this and that, and so I'll open it up for discussion.
Well, the only comment I have, I think 3 is too small. It used to be 15, 15 was too many. I think you really need to be able to at least be able to get a quorum, so I'm looking at more like 5 residents plus the administrator plus the highway. And that's very realistic because it's always about maintenance. The town beach came under the selectmen ended up having the highway department go out and do the cleanup on it. Almost all of these things people fail to realize are liability, and it is back to the town, which is why it's great town administrator is there. So it's about one, having somebody who knows the legal ramification of letting people go on your land, to the maintenance that's required to maintain it, and then having the resource to get it done, which is the highway department.
Yeah.
I think that if you have 5 people, you're gonna be able to not just end up with people who are the land trust people or the people who care about specialty items. I think you'll be able to get a good mixture. I think you have hit the fact that it was always economics. They got very discouraged because to do the things they wanted to do, there wasn't money anymore to do that. The selectmen usually will appropriate for the beach, but there were different activities. We ran summer programs for the kids. That recreational committee, when my children were small, we had Red Cross swimming lessons at the beach. They had a full-time director who did activities during the summer up at the park that was there. I know now we have the Girls and Boys Club that maybe pick up some of that slack, but now you have people who want to do canoeing, hiking, going through all these lands. I think this is a great definition of everything that should come under it. And I think it is smart to step up to the plate. We were always a community of service for our children. That has gone. We just it all became about money. Money, 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 we couldn't do it. But you can't appreciate how big a thing like Red Cross swimming lessons are, having a lifeguard that is there, having activities for smaller children to go to and play. Not every kid wants to play baseball, but they did craft. I remember when Sis Ingraham was the person who did the crafts up there, and there were activities for the kids to do of different age levels. It was outdoor. They even had a bus pickup years back, I think, when they went to the Camp Foskett that came out of there. So I think we need to get back to caring about our own people and the activities. Not everybody has money to do things that the town can provide that would be cost effective. I think it defines it very well, other than my only thing would be I think 3 is too small. That's my own opinion.
This isn't just sports and the hiking and outdoor activities either. It includes trips, sponsored trips, say through the senior activities, for example.
Yeah.
So maybe some good partners to bring on in this, the senior center people or the cultural council people as well, to sort of network with them and work their activities into the whole recreation process.
Yeah, so one of the things that's missing, right, is, I mean, we talk about working with regional organizations, but even internal Dudley organizations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because recreation can be a lot of other things too, besides traditional things we think of, like sports fields and.
Yep.
One of the questions I would ask, so this spawned out of the economic development phase 1, right? I
Yeah.
would imagine this was one of the desirables,
Yeah.
right? That
Yes.
people, residents commented about what they want to promote, right? So it's all about quality of life.
Yeah.
As is important. So on this plan, does this, I see some joint programs with like the town of Charlton. Does this take any into consideration of those organizations as well?
Anything's possible, I'd say, right?
Yeah, and that's why I thought the word, in addition, the commission will work closely with regional organizations. And I give an example as the Last Green Valley or the Dudley Conservation Trust. Last Green Valley is a consortium of towns that actually extend all the way through the Connecticut and parts of Massachusetts. What did it used to be called? The Quinnebog-Shetucket National Historic District or something like that?
Correct. Yep.
And they changed it to the Last Green Valley.
Green Valley, yeah.
And they do a phenomenal job as far as advertising and actually setting up weekends, for people to enjoy the area. And they've been fantastic to work with as
I
well,
worked
right?
with them before, limited, but I worked with them before.
But, you know, we do share a school district with Charlton, so it does make an awful lot of sense, you know, to be cooperating with them
And
even.
sports, right?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
Football, you know, I don't know about the soccer, but football and lacrosse.
Yep.
Or joint programs, so I just, you know, didn't want to lose sight of maybe a way to leverage, you know, who knows what Charlton's doing. If we even want to, you know, maybe we want to split off and do our own sports programs, but, you know, they've been joint as long as I can remember, but, you know, if we want to push on that lever, let's not overlook that either.
Yep. So I guess my first question is, what would be the board's consensus for the number of town residents? Does 5 sound like a good number to start?
Agree with 5.
5?
That's what I was thinking as well.
So informal query, 5? 5? All right, so we'll change that to 5. And they can always increase that themselves once they get going. If they find that, you know, if they could set up a whole alternate program, but the thing is to get them born. All right, so then the next thing that I was thinking about for the town warrant. And it's that same thing, how do you eat an elephant, you know, right? You do it one bite at a time. We keep talking about agriculture. And so the thought was, I've been put on these lists from the Mass Department of Agricultural Resources and the Federal Agriculture, and I'm telling you, there's just so much, it's overwhelming. And so I said, I think it's time that Dudley set up an agricultural commission or a committee. And I looked at some of the other towns. There are some in Massachusetts that have them. And it's really, I was thinking, comprised of 3 town residents who own farms and 2 at-large interested in promoting farming. So 5-member board. And we would ask them to establish the ag committee this year, and it would serve as a forum for matters of interest to farmers in Dudley and to advise the board on how the town can best support farming in Dudley. All right, the committee meets monthly. Mission statement, the commission's duties shall include but are not limited to serving as facilitators for encouraging the pursuit of agriculture in Dudley, promoting agricultural-based economic opportunities in town, acting as mediators, advocates, educators, and or negotiators on farming issues, working for preservation of prime agricultural lands, advising the Board of Selectmen, Planning Board, Zoning Board of Appeals, Conservation, Board of Health, Historical Commission, Board of Assessors, and Open Space Committee, or any other appropriate town boards on issues involving agriculture, pursuing all initiatives appropriate to create a sustainable agricultural community. And just looking over the past 2 years, if we had an agricultural committee, it would have come in quite handy when we had these agriculturally protected lands come up because they're being sold. The town has a right of first refusal to have this objective third party there that's promoting agriculture to actually have had a say would have been very helpful. Again, it's all kind of relying on lay people right now. We had talked about really pursuing wineries, craft breweries, farm-to-table opportunities. This is, I think by having a board, and I'm thinking like the Dudley Grange, right? You know, for them to have a member there, right? And you have a couple of farm owners. I just think it's time with that land and all that information that's pouring in from the state. There's monies out there. There's monies for crop assistance and transition. You know, harvest things. I mean, there's just so much money, and there's just nobody in town that's doing anything with it. And it's a bandwidth issue. Everybody's busy doing everything that they're doing. So I'd like the committee to consider and voting for the warrant, the creation of an agricultural commission. Comments, questions?
No, I agree. I think it's a great idea.
Well, I think it's good for a number of reasons. Number one, when we looked at developing even marketing Dudley, this was one of the segments, along with the recreation, along with the agricultural, along with industrial and attracting business. And our scope was so big you cannot be an expert on everything. So this divides things into those segments of people who have a specific interest. Now, as much as I respect farmland, I'm really not interested, even on economic, it's not my thing. It's not my specialty. I don't bring a lot to the table. And I think this then puts it in the hands of the people who have the most knowledge. And I think that's, again, how you save time and get from point A to point D more quickly. Instead of taking 20 years, maybe you'll get there in 2 or 3. So I think this is excellent. I think the number you picked is a good number. You're bringing the experts in and then the people who have interest. I think a lot of people don't realize there's special financing available, not through a bank necessarily, but through land banks, through USDA, all of those things. And Dudley is part of those programs. Even in housing, we have areas, but there's requirements. You got to be 2 miles from the center. It can't be just anywhere in the town. And I'm sure there's money available for people who want to do farming, buy property and use it as farmland. So I think this is fabulous. I think this, instead of these ad hoc committees companies do, that committees do, I think this is better. So I wholeheartedly support this. I think this is great.
Anybody else?
You know what we're saying, I wonder if we might suggest to CMRPC, to Ron, that we take a look at the agricultural segment, the sector-specific workshop we're talking about, that we look at the agricultural sector first. Sort of a priority to get this project going, get the Agricultural Commission established.
I think this creates buy-in, because it's the people who speak the language, speaking to the people who are, it's one thing for us to say something, none of us are in agriculture, sorry if anyone is, but it's buy-in, and that's what we need, and we need the buy-in, and we need everybody in town to be figuring out how they buy in to our greater strategic plan. I think it's great.
You look at places like Treehouse Brewery, right, in Charlton that just moved over from Monson. I mean, that place is booming. I can't imagine the tax dollars that must come out of that place. Any breweries that pop up, I know some that opened a brewery in Woonsocket in the middle of the city, and you can't get in that place either. They have their beer releases. So I mean, just think that's really popular right now, and just kind of get in on that. The breweries, the wineries, I think that'd be huge for especially the agricultural land, but to drive some more tax dollars in, and kind of to Brian's point earlier of spreading that out, not just amongst the residents to pay all the taxes, but the commercial properties and industrial properties. That would definitely help.
Is this the word commission, what does that mean? Is that a temporary thing, or is that full-fledged effort, or how does that work?
It's funny that you picked up on the commission versus a committee. Sometimes committees just get brushed aside. And I was looking and I was like, I think if we have a commission and it's actually set up in the bylaw, as Joanne said, typically what you'll have an issue come up and some board will say, okay, we're going to set up an agricultural committee to review this. It doesn't give that the seriousness or the longevity. And a commission this is our agricultural commission. Anything agricultural, run it through them first. Get their blessing on it. We don't want committees in name only anymore. There's too much happening. We need people that can get things done, and sometimes it's like in business, the title, right? If you go in and you talk to a CEO, but by chance it says that you're an assistant or whatever, they're going to look at the title, even though the title may not actually be reflective of your role.
Right.
You could be running that other company and just have assistant to executive or whatever. It's the same thing. So I chose the word commission because I wanted it to be powerful. Make any sense?
Yeah.
I don't know what people are thinking about that. Just me.
Well, I think that another thing you have to remember is we have to be careful of the do-gooder effect. There are a lot of people who want to get on committees and they want to do good. They don't bring anything to the table other than they want to do good. It's nice to bring people to the table who already have some knowledge to be able to help the do-gooders come along, rather than to end up with 5 do-gooders on a committee and then you take forever to get things done. So I think understanding the process, these are the people who will be living it. they know what their problems are, and they can convey that information more quickly than people just kind of researching and then coming up with it. Something, I mean, even in agricultural areas, I mean, you can sell a property that's agricultural, and it's not necessarily that you can do farms. It's weird. So you need the people who bring expertise, and I think that's what this does. And then if you want to volunteer later on, you can be a volunteer, but not be part of the actual formation to get the job done. The reason things take so long is people go in circles. And they need to back off and say, you know more than me, I'm gonna listen to what you have to say, not that I wanna be a part of this, and then you're gonna bring me up to speed. I think that's what is time consuming, and I think that cuts to the chase. It's my own opinion.
Anybody have anything else on this? All right, so what I'd like to do is, I'd like to get both of these over to the selectmen as a warrant article for each. I'll ask Greg, the town administrator, to clean it up or whatever he has to do. But, so I guess what I'll do is I'll start with the Recreation Commission. The chair will entertain a motion to ask the selectmen to place the establishment of a new Recreation Commission and the details here onto the Springtown warrant.
Make a motion that we send this forward to the selectmen to the establishment of a new recreation committee.
All right. Joanne's made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Todd is seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so I'll move that over. And the next one would be the same thing that we send over to the Board of Selectmen, the establishment of a new agricultural commission.
Make a motion for the establishment of a new agricultural commission to be submitted to the selectmen for review and correct wording, whatever they need to put it on the warrant.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Beautiful. And the only thing that I changed on that original was comprised of 5 town residents. All right. The next thing on the agenda, that was the addition to the plans. Next steps, I think, got, oh, the other thing that, when we did the town survey, and actually the Webster Times, I thought, did a very fair article. That Jason is one of the most accurate reporters I've ever met in my life or talked with. The issue had come up with the big elephant in the room is the school funding, right? The shortfalls every year. And it causes animosity and infighting between different departments. At the end of the day, the schools need more money and the town needs more money, and we got to keep the taxes low. So how do you do that? The state auditor had released a report that had some recommendations on what to do. Also, to put pressure on the state to fulfill their own obligation to fund different things. Right now they're funding transportation 70%, they should be funding at 100%. And so one of the survey questions was, would you support, separating out the tax rate, between having a town tax and then a school tax? And so if someone was paying $1,000, right, and let's just say hypothetically 50% of the expenses were going to the schools and 50% to the town, you'd have a $500 tax bill, $500, town bill. Both would be still subject to Prop 2.5. I mean, you could still have a single bill with one payment, just how the accounting separates out afterwards. But there were a bunch of things, and so we kind of took it upon ourselves to see if we could facilitate something in conjunction with the state auditor. And so I went to the selectmen, got their buy-in. Greg's been running with it now because our job is done. So we have set up a meeting between the Dudley Board of Selectmen, the Charlton Board of Selectmen, the regional school district, and the state auditor's office. It's going to actually be here Thursday, April 5th at 1 p.m. Greg's running everything. And we're going to see if we can actually work with the auditor's office on a regional approach and get some legislative changes done to the funding formulas and get the state to step up and pay what they actually owe. I mean, how great would it be, right? If if I told my mortgage company, I'm only gonna pay you 70% of what I owe you every month, right? That's what the state is basically doing to the school districts. And so by having the state auditor involved, multiple other boards involved, maybe we can actually get something done. So we've done that, that's off our checklist now, and Greg's running with that. So, but any member of the board is free to attend on April 5th. It's gonna be pretty intense, and it probably just kind of listen, and we'll let the state auditor kind of run with things there for a while. All right, so that's the heads up on that.
Can I just ask
Sure.
one question on that, just for clarity, and sorry, I don't want to prolong any of these items, but just so I understand, the purpose of splitting out the tax base payment is for what reason? What was it, some awareness to?
It's not an awareness issue. It's the fact that if there's a shortfall, if the town has surplus, it gets rated, and vice versa. So there's no segregation of funds, really. So, like what happened with
Wouldn't be
Charlton
really-
last year, Charlton's actually thinking about pulling out of the school district because of what occurred. They thought they had $700,000 last year, and it was just allocated, taken at town meeting from the town. And what it does is it puts a wall between the town's finances and the school finances. And the school needs to be self-sufficient, the town needs to be self-sufficient. If the school needs more money, they could go and do a Prop 2.5 override like they're doing on April 3rd here, all right? But those funds are totally segmented out. It wouldn't affect the tax rate on the municipal side. It also helps that when the school has a surplus, that they can continue to build that surplus, and the town doesn't say, hey, look, we've brought in more money here, so we can spend it now on this vehicle or that vehicle or whatever.
It was just making awareness of traceability of funds.
It's an awareness, but think of it as me and you being part of the same family. We're brothers. Even though we're part of the same family, what I earn shouldn't go into your piggy bank, and what you earn shouldn't go into my piggy bank.
Right.
You have your piggy bank, I have my piggy bank.
Yeah.
If I manage my piggy bank good, I should be able to
Yeah,
use
Use
it.
my surplus.
But if you run short, you shouldn't be able to go into my piggy bank and take my money.
Yeah, I got it.
Simplest scenario.
Okay. Yep.
All right?
Thank you.
But the big issue is really the funding formula. It was done, there were changes made, and it's
Okay.
blowing up all across Massachusetts right now.
Okay.
All right, so we'll call that done. Next thing on the agenda, you have to accept the minutes of December 20th. Everybody got a copy of them?
Yes.
Marcia is not here, but thank you for doing that, Marcia. Chair will entertain a motion to accept the minutes of December 20th.
So moved.
All right. You just made the motion to accept. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Todd, a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next thing on the agenda, the brochure. PJ, did you want to talk about this? Because
Well, we only have 5 minutes left, so
Yeah.
I don't know if you're better served to talk about some of your new business here. I mean, the brochure is difficult, and, part of me says, it's time to dismount, like, the horse is dead. Like, I've sat down with my team at Nichols a little bit and looked at it, and I don't know if we're better off to wait anyway because of hopefully the things that are coming. When we looked over the Charlton example that you had shared, thank you for finding that, by the way, I just don't know that we're in the same place, and it's, are we better to spend the money on, a really well put together video montage of our town that can accompany like a one sheet that anybody can share and can go on the town website, and the people who are moving here can see it, and realtors can share it, or I think we have to go back to the beginning and really give more direction to what you want out of the brochure. It's difficult conceptually, I think, to get everything you want into one piece of literature, and how soon before it's outdated, and are you getting the most bang for your buck?
Yeah.
And I had shared with you, I had an example of a town video that from my hometown. It was, It was well produced, though. It was, it can show so much more in 2 minutes and engage you as a business potential owner and as a homeowner. And, you know, I just think it's time to kind of dismount. I say that, you know, politely, and really think about it if we just wait. I'm waiting to hear back from Dennis, because I did email him to ask him for the original copy of the quote and some of that kind of stuff, so. Where are we at with it,
You know, yeah, if I can jump, this brochure was sort of inherited. And it was, I'm be speaking personally here, it was a good idea. But that Charlton one was actually mostly funded by the Mass Turnpike. They had given grants out when that first came out. It's been like 3 years in the making. I personally feel that at this point, we can't deliver a perfect product to the town. And this has been, in my personal opinion, a lead weight to this committee, this brochure. And I was laying there in bed last night and I said, you know, the time has come, in my opinion, to cut our losses on this. I mean, even though there's technically no financial loss, it's time to cut bait. We have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure first, right, that we realize that the money that's there is not ours, it's the people, the taxpayers' money. And I can't guarantee a good, perfect quality product here. I can't guarantee it. And so if it was my money, and if it was my investment, I'd stop. And so it was my personal opinion that, and I know the chair is not supposed to make a motion, but I'm going to make a motion after the discussion here that I'd like to terminate any work that's been done on this brochure and immediately return the donations back to those companies and individuals who donated. And I'll do a letter just saying that I can't guarantee, that we can't guarantee a quality product. There's a lot of changes going on, like you said. We don't know, and so at this point in time, it's best just to stop and give the money back.
Okay, I'm going to add to that. Number one, time kills deals. So I'm going to be the first one to say I'm in agreement, because I give up. We, a bunch of amateurs, took on a project above our heads, couldn't do it in a timely manner, couldn't manage to get our meetings done in a timely manner to bring it to a timely conclusion. So it doesn't make any sense to me. I could take on a project like this as a private entity and have this done in 6 months in a better manner than what we were doing over all this time, because too many hands in the pot, too many opinions, too much. A Chamber of Commerce did this for years for our communities, did it in a timely manner to get out information on their towns quicker than we've been able to. So I'm in agreement with you. Cut the losses, return the money, move on, new world, get it done. And if I really wanted to see something that was a brochure, I'd hit the Chamber of Commerce to get something done.
Okay. Todd, you?
I agree. I'm in agreement, full agreement.
Ellen?
Sounds okay.
BJ? You guys? All right, so,
I'll second your motion.
all right, so I've made the motion, Joanna seconded it. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This is a good day. All right. Now, this is more of informational. There's a lot happening all of a sudden quickly in town. So let me just talk about 4 Airport Road first. You notice the Dollar Tree right there? That's the Park and Shop Plaza. There is a section there. There should be a banner hanging there now.
Yeah.
All right? There is 16,639 square feet available there. They're going to be putting another storefront there. I'm going to be putting this on the website later on tonight. It actually has the specs and the layout.
That's within the,
Yeah, it's going to be,
actual
yeah,
mall?
so it's going to be
To the left of the Dollar Tree?
to the left of Dollar Tree.
Okay.
All right, and there'll be a map that will actually show the space, you know, online as well. So just a prime opportunity piece there. they asked what type of businesses, we'd be looking, to have there. We said pretty much open everything, as just said, but if it's marijuana, stay away from it because you don't want to go down and have that fight yet because the zoning's not done on that yet. This is not a plate for a pot shop. So anything like that, don't even think about it. This was just an informal conversation.
Do the owners have any restrictions as to businesses that can go in, so they're not a conflict with something that's already in there?
I don't know.
Well, that would be important to know.
Yep.
Depends whatever the zoning allows, really.
Well, no, it isn't, because if I owned a building and I
Yeah, they
made a
have
commitment to you under a lease, I wouldn't put
That's
another.
right, they have private agreements too, that's.
Yeah.
So John,
Yeah.
what's our responsibility, or what are we offering up here? I'm just trying to understand. You
Our-
got this rental space, right? This leasable, building or component of that site, right?
Yeah.
And you're just helping to promote it?
That's all we're doing. We redid the town's website a year and a half ago. We're gonna start helping fill some of this vacant. There's really not too much retail space available in Dudley, believe it or
Right,
not.
right.
And so anything that we can do to assist local businesses, so we'll just put
Okay.
it up there, just to have informational FYI.
Okay.
One thing about that site, there's a massive amount of parking on that site.
Yep.
I wonder if the zoning required all that parking, or if it did, if we want to look at rethinking the zoning bylaws to reduce the amount of parking that's necessary for retail.
Yeah.
Just, it's something that's out there. It's just a massive parking lot for,
Well, this is
I don't know
something,
if it ever really fills up, or if you ever expect it to.
yeah, and it, right, would depend on the type of business, but there is probably land to do things
That
differently
as
there.
well, it's probably neighboring land.
But-
Yeah, to it, yeah.
While over the winter, you guys may have read the papers, both mills, pipes froze. So many businesses were displaced. And nobody had anywhere to go here in Dudley. Because there's simply not the retail space that's available.
It's about cost, though, John. I mean, you're not gonna get retail space at $6 a square foot. That's not gonna happen in the real world, nor is any owner of a complex gonna be cutting down to those kind of numbers. And they had very cheap space, so they're in the bind of the real world of people who own property being able to rent for what's market value for them.
So here's our time bomb that I think about maybe between now and the next meeting, is you have older structures now that are not being maintained, that are just gonna continue to get worse. How do we hold the owners of those properties accountable to at least making sure that those properties are safe and not gonna fall into disrepair?
Your selectman's office has a building inspector. Number one, they're supposed to have some types of annual inspections on, that go on, and you have another issue to deal with. You're gonna have the historical group on your back for anything that you're gonna try and administer to those properties for changing what's there. Safety is one issue, but that comes under your town. That's your building inspector's job.
So at the next meeting, let's have a good discussion on this.
Before we jump into somebody else's department and try and call them to task, I think you probably should sit down with the selectmen to see what they're doing, because this is about scope of authority again. This really doesn't come under us to be the enforcing agency for
I'm not
this.
looking to be the enforcement agency. I want to make sure that those either they're looking to rent them or they're not.
Well, they may be looking to put them in a different use, and that's
So-
not
so-
our business. That's their business.
Well, I think it is our business. If they're going to be looking to do something with a different use of those buildings, well, let's have a conversation with the owners.
I don't think that that's your purview, that I have to be accountable. Those people who own commercial, number one, they're not gonna be, as much as we're putting our nose into doing a little self-promotion, in the real world, CoStar, commercial sites, those are where they're publishing, where they're getting their people. That's nice, we put it up on our little site and look to do that, but this is their business, this is their money, this is their pockets. They're not just sitting back and just letting it all happen. They're probably doing a little bit more. Safety is a town problem, but you telling me or giving me direction of where I should be going with my own company, I think you're overstepping a little bit.
No, I'm saying to have a discussion with them as part of the economic development plan, right? The use of those structures is something that the town, right? We had the survey question. They're looking for mixed use in a lot of those. We're hearing that we've got one of those properties that's, what, $40,000-$50,000 in the rear to taxes to this town. Does this mean the town's gonna inherit this? Possibly down the road?
Well, if they do, lucky them, they'll get to sell it off for taxes to someone else.
Depends if it's lucky for us or not. And so there's nothing that having a good conversation, asking the owners to come in and say, what's going on? What is your intent? How can we help?
Well, then it may have been the flavor in which you said it.
Okay.
It sounded more dictatorial to me. Being in the business and owning real estate, to have somebody tell me what I'm gonna do with my real estate and hold me accountable for how I wanna develop it, versus having a nice conversation. So if you wanna invite them before a board, that's one thing, but telling me that I need to do things to my property is another thing.
No, all I was pointing out was because they did not maintain their heating systems
But
properly.
that's not your job. And I'm a former selectman, so I'm gonna take offense that you're trying to overstep into a department that comes under the selectmen to administer safety issues, and you don't know what they're discussing to do those things. Before you do that, have a conversation and don't step on the selectmen's toes for doing that.
All I'm saying is that it affected us because we had dozens of small businesses that were instantly put out of business. That's why we're here. We need to advocate for them. And those businesses, I don't know if you got any of the calls, they were looking for space. I did. They're looking for space and looking for someone who's gonna help us.
Again, it's back to the reality check. You can try and be a savior. It's $6 a square foot, but somebody needs to be a real-world person here. They were a little customary businesses on doing that. I didn't particularly appreciate walking in for a meeting and finding people doing exercises in the town hall. I didn't think that was appropriate. I know you're trying to help them, but I don't think that's the function of town government and a town building to be put into that kind of a use. So I think you still need to be careful of your divisions of authority, of where you are at, and before you make any kind of comments to that fact about holding them for safety and that, you need to talk to your selectmen and let it. The fire department has got issues I'm sure they're working on, and not everything is in open doors on what they have to discuss to enforce what they need to enforce. And honestly, having been in that seat before, to bring somebody for a violation that's a building violation is a legal process that you must go through. It just is. So,
Great
just a
discussion.
difference of opinion.
Yep,
Just a
nope,
difference of opinion. That's all.
So for the next agenda, let's think about it. We'll have a discussion. Some of the other things that have come up. There is two subdivisions have been submitted to the town. One off of Jesse Road, which is, what, 20-something units?
20.
20. This one here, I think, is going to have some challenges because of some grades. But, I mean, it's a subdivision by right, but how it tweaks, they're looking for a couple of waivers. But does the planning board post the plans online?
Not on this one. When it comes to the definitive plan, the one that actually gets approved and recorded, this is a preliminary plan, this is for working purposes. You give the input to the developer and what goes into the plan that gets built and recorded, the registry, and the lots get sold and so forth.
So the planning board is looking for input from the various boards on these plans. The other plan that came up is actually on Airport Road between Airport and Dudley Hill. And it's a 55 and older townhouse community. About 20 units, very nicely laid out. That one there, I think this one is very well done.
It's a little bit different process that's involves zoning, not just subdivision. Involves a special permit.
This is because of the cluster?
Yes.
Yeah. So that one's there, so there could be some possibility. The other thing was, there is a solar array being proposed, and the proponents are voluntarily going to notify the abutters now. And the planning board will be holding a public hearing on it off of 99 Ramco Road. And it's a piece that I'm kind of familiar with on the planning board, because this is I think it's the Dershowitz piece.
Oh,
That's
okay.
had
Oh, yeah.
subdivisions proposed there, and housing and condos and everything else. This could actually work out well for the neighbors on this one, but technically, the neighbors don't need to be notified on this until they actually submit the plans. But because there's what's called a solar overlay district, and the planning board is gonna sponsor that onto the town meeting article, that they're voluntarily notifying all the abutters now about this, so that they can have those discussions hopefully before the actual town meeting vote, which I thought was nice to them to do.
It'll be on April 11th, the hearing of the...
April 11th is gonna be the actual hearing on that? So, that's that. We went through the reappointments a little earlier. I said I was gonna try to get you out in an hour. Me and Joanne got a little sidetracked on Mills. Is there any other business that anybody'd like to present to the board at this time? No. All right. Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Joanne's made the motion.
Second.
Todd second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thanks, Fred. Sorry to keep you over as well.